Welcome back to my favorite thing that I do here at KMBR. I do Niner pregame. I do Stanford. I do the little show, I guess we call it, with Gary and Larry. It's a Monday through Friday thing. People have heard of it, but this is where it's really at. The Giants hot stove discussion with the great Marty Lurie, who joins us from parts unknown. The mean streets of Mesa have given us Marty Lurie. All right, Marty, we talked a little Grinky in the first segment. Let's start our second segment talking a little bit about what happens if. Well, first of all, let's get into the dilemma which is out there, which is: would you rather have Grinky for 30 million or 32 million or 33 million or whatever, or would you rather have two guys? And let's just say you could have Grinky or you could have Jeff Samardzija, Mike Leake, or my two favorites would be John Lackey, Jeff Samardzija. Would you rather have one Grinky or a Lackey Samardzija or a Leak Samardzija or a Cueto Leak? A combo. Would you rather have two or one?
I'd rather have two. I really would. I think, because look, after whoever they get in that two spot, then you're back to Jake Peavy again. And you're hoping that he comes in shape and has a decent year. And what are you going to do in the four spot and the five spot? So I think they need two good starters. Then you can take your time with Tyler Beatty and people like that and try to fill in around them. So, honestly, if Greinke goes back to the Dodgers, I'm okay. Now, the longer the Giants wait, and Larry, we said this a month ago, the longer they wait to make a move, other teams now get involved. Now the Cubs are into John Lackey. Who knows what other teams may want to get involved with him. Samardzija's all of a sudden at $100 million. He says he's got that. Leak is still part of Arizona. The Japanese pitcher is getting posted now, Maeda. So things are getting a little murkier. So to answer your question, I'd rather have two. And you have to, people talk about left field and Zobrist and Cespedes and all this stuff. That's a lot of fun. But you've got to get the pitching straight on this team. And once you do that, then you can take care of everything else. So I'd rather have 35 million. I'd rather put it in two pitchers than one.
We're in lockstep. It would be a horrendous sports talk show. We can't do this any longer. No, I'm totally with you. As far as is Greinke better than Samardzija? Of course he is, but in the off season he's a lot better. In the regular season, they're two good pitchers locking horns. And is Greinke superior? Sure, and that's why he's going to get more money. But I'm with you. I think the way that you win is you have 8 tough outs in a lineup, in a National League lineup, 9 in the American League. And I think you win in the National League by having a good starter on the mound every day. And you only wind up with a good starter on the mound every day if you build a deep enough rotation. To me, I'd like to see the Giants build this rotation for 2016 with Matt Cain not in one of the top 5 spots. Because I fear that Matt Cain will never be Matt Cain again. And I don't want to see the Giants' chances of winning a playoff spot in 2016 predicated on Matt Cain and what he's doing, because I don't believe that I think that's a high risk deal, and it's a low percentage that he's going to return to the Matt Cain of old. So now, do I want Cueto and Leak? If it came down to Greinke versus Cueto and Leak, I'd rather have Greinke. But if it comes down to Samardzija and Lackey or Greinke, I'd rather take Samardzija and Lackey. I like the big-bodied 6'5" guy who's durable, who's going to make 30 to 33 starts, and is going to give you 200 innings, and that's the route I would go. Greinke would be great, and taking him away from the Dodgers would be a double whammy. But to me, I think the real value, and I've looked at the whole market. I know Samardzija has not been a winner where he's been, but I think he's really has a healthy arm. And that's a big thing to me when you're talking about, millions and millions of dollars committed long-term to a pitcher. I got to maintain health. I got to make sure a guy's healthy first. So I like Samardzija because of the durability, and I like Lackey because of the durability and what I saw this year in St. Louis, Marty. I think if you had Bumgarner, Lackey, Samardzija, Peavy, and then Heston and Cain battling for one spot with the Clayton Blackburns and all the young kids coming up behind it, I think that's a healthier situation than saying, okay, you're rock solid at the top with Greinke and Bumgarner, but then Kane's got to take that fourth spot, and Peavy's got to be right in the fifth spot. And I don't know. I think when you start to lean, if they have to lean too heavily on the trio of Peavy, Kane, and Heston, I think it's going to be a tough year.
Yeah, look who you're competing with. You're competing with the Mets. Washington has still got the rotation. You're dealing with the Cubs. The Pirates probably need a couple of pitchers in there. They've lost a couple. The Cardinals are always going to be tough, and you're dealing with the Dodgers. So you have to be able to compete pitching-wise. And look, San Diego and Arizona, they're going to be active as well. Arizona clearly is trying to get Cueto. They've offered $120 million. He didn't even want it. So what's going to happen? Larry, I don't think they can sign two pitchers. I think the market is so crazy. There's so many teams that need a guy that they're never going to be able to outbid everybody for Samardzija, Leak, or Cueto, or any way you look at it. I'm going to say something that I've said for a long time, and that is they got to make a trade. And I still think, Shelby Miller's probably out of the question now because his value is skyrocketing with all the money that's going out for the free agents. But there is Julio Teheran, who's still out there. There's the Tyson Rosses of the world. There's Shields, if you want to get down to him, and his money, which doesn't look so bad right now. I don't think you can sign two guys. I don't think it's realistic. I think the market will be crazy, and I think if they go out and spend $120 million on Samardzija, they're not going to go out and spend another $80 million or $90 million on Leak. I think one is what they'll get if they don't get Greinke. And I still say this to you: they've got people in this farm system that people want. They can make a trade for a pitcher who is controllable, who still has a good arm to do what you want to do. And I agree. That's what you have to do. You got to put a pitcher out there every day. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble because the wild card is no guarantee, and you got to beat the Dodgers.
It's interesting, Marty. It's an interesting perspective. I don't necessarily share this belief with you for this reason. I think the Giants have the money to compete with anybody. They have according to Forbes magazine, they have $400 million of annual revenue, and their stadium's nearly paid off, and they own their stadium. So I would say that where they can't compete is in a trade because they don't have players that the other teams want that they're willing to move. Like we heard this week, Carlos Carrasco's name come up, and the Indians, according to the reports I read, wanted Brandon Belt and Joe Panic. Well, that's a non-starter for Bobby Evans right there. And I don't see the Giants in a rush to trade Christian Arroyo. I know they would trade Tyler Beede if the right pitcher came along, but I would look at it the other way. I think they do have the dollars to I agree with you. They can't outbid for maybe the top guys. They may only be able to outbid the masses on one guy, but who knows? Maybe Fister or Leak, West Coast guys, or at least, have some West Coast history, might be willing to take what kind of a middle offer to play for the Giants. I think that where they really can't compete is they can't compete in trades for prospects because they're not willing to trade the players that other teams covet, and many of the players that other teams covet are young major leaguers on their 25-man roster, and I'm very confident from talking to Bobby Evans that they don't want to go down that road. So I agree with you. I'd rather see them pull a trade, but it has to be for young arms because that's where their depth really resides in the minor leagues.
Well, Fister is interesting because I thought Fister may go back to Detroit, but Detroit today signed Mike Pelfrey to a 2-year deal. So I would think probably that's that. And then, of course, they got Zimmerman this week. What do you think of that? Zimmerman, I
think the Giants dodged a bullet there. If you read the Keith Law report at the end of the year on Zimmerman, according to National League scouts, his velocity from June till the end of the year dropped 4 miles an hour. Now, in any half-season deal, that's not a huge deal. But going into your walk year, when you're potentially going to offer a guy $100 million, I'm not offering anybody $110 million who's lost 4 miles an hour from June till the end of the year. I think he had Tommy John in 2009. I don't know how long his arm is going to be healthy. I think they dodged a huge bullet there. I don't like the health of Zimmerman long term.
Well, I like Zimmerman. I think he knows how to pitch, and I'm not worried about him. But in the American League, he made a very bad choice. Now he's got to deal with 9 hitters. For him, with any question marks at his age, he should have been a National League pitcher. So he's gone. But Pfister is what we brought up. I thought he may go back to Detroit. Pfister's from the Valley. He's always pitched well. His velocity is way down. That would be an extra guy. You got to keep Matt Cain in mind here. Matt Cain is going to be part of this mix one way or another. He will get every chance to earn the $20 million. You just can't forget about it. So I think it's one. I think if they get rejected by Greinke, I think they're going to easily go out and spend the 120, 130, whatever it is they'll overpay for somebody. They will get some free agent. I guarantee that. The second one, I don't guarantee.
I think there's a strong likelihood that Leake is coming back. It sounded like, when they were asking him about it this week, he said there's a strong possibility he could return. I think the connection and the relationship that he has with Bochy going back many years will make it so I think Leake is a guy they feel like can be their second guy. I just don't think they want to get to that until they get the Greinke move out of the way, or at least, whatever corresponding move they're going to make. Because I don't think Leake can be the best pitcher they add. And I won't be as excited about the Giants if Leake's the best pitcher they add. I don't think they will be as excited about their opportunities if Leake is the best pitcher they add this winter. So I think they're trying to get something else done with Leake being the second guy coming in. Let me ask you about left field, because the Giants have also been linked to Ben Zobrist, and they've been linked through about 9 different rumor mills. So I've got pretty good authority that they're interest in Zobrist is legit. They tried to trade for him multiple times last year. They tried to trade for him before the A's got him. They really like this player, and it makes sense. They got a hole in left field. They have Joe Panik at second base with back issues, and they got a guy who's just a perfect Giant in a lot of ways. What do you think, though, of offering Ben Zobrist $15, $16, or $17 million per year for 4 years? You're talking about a commitment that will lead him into his 38th birthday. I like the player, but that's very Scudero. It's like a super Scudero contract where you get the guy that you want who fits ideally, but man, the chances that you get burned in that 4th and final year are pretty high.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming here. He'll be a Cub. He's going to be a Met. The Mets are desperate. The Mets are going to lose a couple of significant players through free agency, Murphy and Cespedes. Whatever Zobrist wants, he will get from the Mets. That's my feeling. He will end up being a Met. It's nice to be able to think that, you'd spend that kind of money for Zobrist. He could back up second base if Panic's not okay. He could play third if Duffy needs a rest or doesn't come through. He could play in left field. He could play some first base as well. He's a nice addition, but is he the top of my list? Absolutely not. And my realistic impression of him is he is going to go somewhere else. I wouldn't waste time thinking about it.
Who's the top of your list, by the way, in left field?
Well, I still think Upton is still the guy. I think Upton is the guy you want to think about. If he doesn't go to the Mets, Seattle now is filled in with Aoki in left field. They're not looking at Upton. Upton's market is probably shrinking, and I think Upton is going to be the guy. If the Giants lose Greinke and they end up getting that one pitcher, Upton will be the second guy that they bring in to play left field.
I think Alex Gordon, Marty. I think Gordon is slated to get the kind of contract that the Giants are going to feel comfortable giving a left fielder. I think they'd love to have Zobrist because I think there's some concern about Panik. And I think Zobrist in their mind, because of Panik's back, maybe even is a higher priority than Gordon. But if you really look at it, if Alex Gordon leaves Kansas City, I think the Giants are right there in that, because I think he's going to get 5 years, $90 million, and that jives with what they're paying Hunter Pence. And you mix in Gold Glove defense and left, and a guy who's going to hit for a good average and use the whole field. I could very much see a Hunter Pence, Alex Gordon flanks in the outfield. I think it would be a great pickup. I'm a huge Gordon fan. I see that as a real natural fit.
Yeah, I like Gordon. I mean, it's so funny we talk about this. It's everything I've talked about over the summer. A couple of years ago, Zobrist was my guy. Gordon was my guy. Leake was my guy. Samardzija was my guy. And it's, that's the market, and they're still out there. So, yeah, Alex Gordon would be terrific. I tend to think Upton in this ballpark, they need a right-handed hitter who can reach the seats in left field easily, and I think he can. So if everything fell through, I'm gonna stick with Upton on that one.
Let's go lesser names. Let's go center field here. What are you thinking in center field? Angel Pagan? Are they going to move him? Are they comfortable with Gregor Blanco? If they like Blanco as a guy who can play some center field, are they looking for a right-handed hitter? I bring this up because one of the rumors that Jerry Krasnick had this week from ESPN is that the Giants are on a short list of teams that may have a match with the Houston Astros, and the name Jake Marisnick was thrown out, that he would come to the Giants and the Giants would send pitching, probably not top-tier pitching, but maybe second or third-tier pitching back to the Astros. That's an intriguing name to me. Marisnick stole over 20 bases, pretty good defensive player, big, rangy, 6'3", 6'4" outfielder, a little bit low average, coming into his own, his best baseball's in the future. I'm excited by the combination of Gregor Blanco and Jake Marisnick playing center field. What do you think?
I like it. No, I like it. I think that, we've said this, Pagan right now is a subpar defensive center fielder. Somehow when he's in the lineup, the team does well. He gets on base and they can do things. Another year older, injured a lot. We hope for Maben. Maben ended up with Detroit as well. So, yeah, Marisnick would be terrific with Blanco. I don't see a problem with it. Down here, I was going to say to you this. By the way, I'm in Fort Lauderdale now, getting ready to go on the Giants cruise.
Oh, okay.
Sunday, by the way. It's been raining since I got here. But the scouts, before I left Arizona, we had a big lunch on Tuesday, and the people who've seen the Arizona Fall League are in agreement. Mac Williamson will be playing left field for the Giants sometime this year.
That's interesting.
Now, that depends on Upton and all that stuff, but that's how much they thought of Williamson in the Fall League.
Maybe the Giants don't need to do something of significance. I'm thinking Alex Gordon, that's $90 million. Not that Zobrist is cheap, but if you liked Williamson, but you were hedging your bet on left field, and you'll obviously love Panic, but you don't know about the back, maybe Zobrist covers both areas for them, and that's the natural fit. Another name that got entered into the mix this week, two names. The Giants have had a lot of success with minor league free agents, and Gregor Blanco and others have been minor league free agents. Justin Maxwell, Brandon Hicks. They signed a couple guys. Grant Green, the former USC number one pick, A's number one pick years ago, thought of as a guy who could really hit, but didn't have a glove, and he hasn't done a lot of either. He hasn't hit or fielded, but he can play second, he can play third, he can play left, he can play right, and there's still some hope that the bat will be exactly what they thought it would be. Grant Green invite to the spring training. Give me your thought on that one.
Yeah, great to have him. Nice to have him in Sacramento. If you need people in Sacramento if things don't go well, if you have injuries, and he's a guy who's been in the big leagues, but he's never done anything. And I think he's a guy like a Justin Maxwell. If someone gets hurt, if God forbid, someone gets hurt in spring training, you need a guy. Green is a major league player, but he's not going to break into this team. I don't see that happening.
Well, an interesting name nonetheless. Let's hit a couple of the headlines before we say goodbye. Barry Bonds is back in baseball officially as the new batting coach of the Miami Marlins. You spent a lot of time in Miami, Marty. You know that baseball is very much secondary there, but Bonds, I'm glad that Bonds is back in the game because I think this guy's is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to hitting, and he needs to start, imparting some of that to young hitters. He didn't do it when he played. He did his whole bike riding thing. Enough of this. I mean, the guy's a ball player. Get him back in baseball in some capacity. I think this is overdue.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm down here, obviously, in South Florida, and everyone's very excited about it. Frankie Menachino becomes his assistant. Look, Bonds says, my godfather, Willie Mays, taught me to hit. His father, obviously, Bobby Bonds, was a hitting coach for the Giants. Barry Bonds is going to get up at 7 a.m. He's going to get out to the ballpark at noon. He's going to talk to these guys. He's made the commitment that we all thought he would never make, and that is he will be a full-time hitting coach, be with these guys every single day. So he says, let's see how it works. So, let's see how it works. He may be bored right now, But when he's got one of those trips, into Chicago, Atlanta, and Philadelphia in the middle of July, and he's got to be at the ballpark at noon every day to work with Christian Yelich, let's see what happens. But I think it's great for him. Look, he's, as I've always said, the guy had one pitch to hit, and he hit it 500 feet. He's the greatest hitter in my lifetime that I remember seeing. And I think it's great. Why not? And Jeffrey Loria, he's the guy to do it. And Mattingly is there. Mattingly signed off on it. I think it's going to be a great story. I think it will be. You know how Bonds is. Let's see how it works out. It's a great baseball story. And the Giants were never going to give him that kind of play. So it's good to get him back in and see what he does with it. I think it's terrific.
I think it's great, too. By the way, are you a fan of Russo's show on MLB Network, High Heat?
Come on, I love it.
Did you see him? Did you see him this week talking about this? He's like, I'll tell you right now. It gets to Milwaukee, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Barry Bonds is not going to be saying Giancarlo Stanton, go get the tea. Let me tell you right now, they're just trying to create headlines, and it's not legit. Russo was just awesome this week talking about this.
He's the best. He was all over David Price with the Red Sox. And this is not for the Red Sox. They didn't do anything. All they did was pay the money. That's all he did was pay the money. So I love him. I think he's the best thing on. I really do.
He's awesome. I'll tell you, it's a publicity stunt. I'll tell you right now, Barry Bonds, write it down, July. He's not going to want to be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon playing soft toss. I'm just saying.
Him in Detroit, he's crazy. Why is he going to Detroit? He shouldn't be in the American League.
Oh, I love Russo. One stinking time.
Zobrist. I mean, I've listened to him about choices. The Mets have got to get him. They owe it to the fan base. They owe it to everybody. They're losing people. I don't care what it costs. Does it cost $15 million? What do you care? Now they got the back pages from the Yankees. They got to do it.
Russo. God bless you, Russo. All right, couple last things. Dave Roberts, the official manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think the Dodgers got the right guy out of their final duo. Roberts is a good man. He really is. He's a solid guy. And even though that's a wild circus with all kinds of media and people going in different directions and ball players living all over Southern California, it's really hard to get a united Dodger clubhouse. It's a tough place to be united. And yet I think there's a soul to Roberts that is going to help them. There's an aggressiveness to the way he played the game that I think will transfer. There's a toughness and an intellect to him that I think will get transferred to them. I hate to say it. I think they made the right call.
Yeah, they did. We knew that Gabe Kapler would be better for the Giants. So he's on the staff, apparently. Bob Guerin, come on. He's going to be the bench coach. That was an interesting move. But the Dodgers are in transition, and Dave Roberts is part of it. They're going to get rid of all the bad apples. Puig, look, he got in trouble down here in Miami. Who knows what his trade value is now. Carl Crawford, Ethier, all these people they want to get rid of. They want to redo this team, and Dave Roberts is a perfect guy to do it. He just has to weather the storm until they do it. But I'm convinced, and that's why I see how this Greinke thing plays out. I'm convinced the Dodgers are going to try to do it differently with a different kind of chemistry in the clubhouse, and Roberts fits that. And I think that's where they're going.
Couple things on the way out here. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Sandy Alderson, who's now battling cancer. And Sandy Alderson, I've had him on the show this year and talked to him many times through the years. You know him, and I've had many dialogues with the man. One of the real brains in baseball, and a guy who is very grounded in a lot of ways. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the entire baseball community, kind of wishing Sandy the best. And he's not going to step down from his position. He's going to battle this. They say it's not a life-threatening form of cancer. Man, there's just too many people in our world, Marty, who are affected by this insidious disease. And I know that you're with me in saying our thoughts and prayers really go to Alderson and his family.
Absolutely. And, at one point they wanted to make him the commissioner of baseball, but he was so outspoken that the owners were afraid to make him the commissioner. They thought he'd be like another Judge Landis or something. So my thoughts go to him and his family, his son Bryn, who I know, and his wife, of course. So, we hope things go well for him. And they said 8 weeks of chemo, and then hopefully he'll be back. on the job. So I'm glad you brought that up. Good man.
Well, and we won't finish with that. We'll leave on more of a high note. Give me a sleeper name or two this week. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to throw you one. The Rule 5 draft is a big part of the winter meetings, and the Giants don't always participate in the Rule 5 draft. In fact, they rarely do. But what you usually see are basically guys who, if you draft them, you can pay a certain amount of money. I think it's $50,000. And then you have to keep that player on your major league roster the entire year. If by chance you have to send them down to the minor leagues, you have to offer them back to their previous team, and they can pay they can pay $25,000 and get them back. Sometimes you'll see deals worked out in season if a team wants to send a guy down, but they still want to retain the player. Remember this name. He is this year's Rich Aurelia. TJ Rivera. He is a Mets shortstop who can play second, short, and third. They have other guys that they like more. They have Gavin Cecchini, who's Garen Cecchini's brother. They have other players in the infield spots that they're have greater thoughts about. But this kid has hit at every level he's played at. He's a New York City kid. He's a really smart kid. I'd love to see the Giants invest a Rule 5 draft pick in TJ Rivera. He's a right-handed hitter. You play him as a backup to Brandon Crawford at shortstop, and he gives you another bench bat. And I think he's a good enough hitter to hit in the big leagues right now. I've already texted the great Robert Evans with my suggestion of TJ Rivera in the Rule 5 draft. You don't have to have a Rule 5 draft guy, because I know that's super obscure, Marty. But is there a name this week, a sleeper name that, man, at the end of the week, you'd be real happy to see him with the Giants?
Danny Salazar.
Interesting, for the Indians.
I think Danny Salazar is obtainable, and that's the one. Something's going to happen. The winter meetings are great. I mean, you're going to see trades, signings. There's nothing like the winter meetings. And I think Salazar is the guy. I think that's a possibility. We'll have to see how everything plays out. But for me, Salazar, and I think the Giants are itching to make a trade. I think they're dying to make a trade. They're not dying to spend $200 million. They're thinking trade, and I think something's going to happen.
All right, and we've got one on Twitter. A guy has asked us a question at Baseball Marty on Twitter, at SportsLarryKMBR, and it's Leroy from Vacaville, and he's asking about Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins is a free agent. What do we think of Jimmy Rollins coming to the Giants in some kind of super utility role? You know, it's an interesting concept, Marty. He's only played shortstop throughout his career, but he is a right-handed power hitter, or he is a power hitter, and he's a guy who has the athleticism to play other spots. And he's a Bay Area guy. If he was willing to embrace the role, I think he'd be a phenomenal clubhouse guy. I know you love talking to J-Roll every time he rolls through the Bay. What do you think of that? Jimmy Rollins coming off the Giant bench in 2016. Do you like it, or is he not a fit?
Encinal High School, great kid. We love talking to him. He's finished. So I think that's the end of that. He's
really
done. He's finished.
And even off the bench.
He's gone. He's a switcher. He couldn't do anything. He's hitting 200 the whole year.
But he has power. He has power, and he's pretty fast.
Rob, he's a switch hitter, and you don't need him.
You don't like it. You like my TJ Rivera, though, I bet.
Rivera, as you say it, I always say, how come the Mets don't want him?
I know, seriously. That's a good question. All right, that's going to be a wrap for us, Marty. Good stuff. We hit a lot of topics. Winter meeting starting Monday in Nashville. Keep it locked on KMBR throughout the week. We'll have updates. Keep it locked on KMBR.com on the web. We'll have updates and a lot of breakdown on who the Giants are looking at, what's the latest and greatest, and all the rumors. And let's get together next week for another edition of The Hot Stove. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Have a great day. Nice to see you, Larry.
Good to see you as well.